Hey everybody, we're going to do a little bit of basic tank maintenance on my open top 20 long here today, and we're going to do a before and after video. I don't know if I'm going to do anything during. I really don't feel like it. I think I'm just going to shoot some before, get you a good look at the tank, talk about what we're going to do, and then I'm going to get on with it, and then we'll shoot a little bit afterwards and we can look at what we've done and see the difference that it's made. The two main concerns I have is the tannin stained water just needs to go, and I need to brighten it up and vac the gravel a little bit, and the plant growth is just out of control. The main part that I really want to deal with is this big floating mass of water Sprite. I do like water Sprite in this tank, and I really do like the way it's coming out of the tank, but this one piece is just enormous. That whole root mass is all this one piece. So what I'm probably going to wind up doing is finding some of the smaller pieces. You can see these roots hanging down here on the edge. That's a whole new plant that I can tease and separate out of this main body. So there will be several small plants within this main mass that I can tease out of there. I can get rid of this big mass here and then put the tank back to a little more realistic condition. You can see in the video now where you can barely even see the bottom of the tank, and as I've said before, as pretty as that looks, you know, just the reality is part of the hobby for me is photographing and videoing my tanks, and if there's not enough light getting to the bottom, in this case there's no plants down there that need any light, but I need light for photography and I need light for videos, and I do like to see my fish occasionally. So sometimes we just gotta take all that beautiful root and all that beautiful vegetation and thin it out a little bit to let the light get back in the tank, and that's where we are today. So when I do water changes on this tank or any of my smaller tanks, I generally use my hand vac, and I will just dump right into a bucket, and sometimes I will keep a second bucket there, and I can actually do 10 gallons, which would be a fairly large water change on this tank. It would be more than 50%. I do have one of the large hoses that runs into my other room, and what I will wind up doing is using that to fill the tank back up rather than carting buckets of water or gallon jugs. That's kind of a pain in the butt. I don't mind using a 5-gallon bucket and vacuuming 1 or 2 of those out while I'm actually vacuuming up the gravel, and I have a lot of small fish in this tank, so a lot of mess gets down in that gravel and a lot of filth comes up out of it. So it is good for me to do that from time to time. Around the other side, I do have some plants that are actually rooted in. You can see this temple plant here in the corner is rooted in, and then the temple plant that is growing up and out the top is rooted in. So all of this is going to get trimmed down, and all of those little branches are going to get trimmed off right near the surface. So I will get more branching and more bushy growth on this temple plant, because you sort of lose appreciation for what it looks like when it grows up and over the light. The heat from the light actually hurts the leaves, and it doesn't get the proper lighting, so you don't get that nice reddish color that it tends to develop once it comes up out of the water. So I really do want to trim that back and get it nice and bushy again. Even the stems on this plant are attractive. I think I actually want to raise the light bar a little bit. When I made it originally, I'd made it for LEDs that I had hanging on there. So I think I just need to get in there and make an adjustment. This is all homemade stuff, so I can do something quite easily and adjust that. The problem I run into is, again, the lighting and me shooting video. And with the light any higher, I get so much bleed over that I get glare on everything in the room. As it is, I've had to cover up things with black cloth so you don't see the reflection in the tank because of all the bleed over light that you get from this fixture here. So that's an issue I will work with. I do want to see some more growth coming out the top though, and in order to do that, I'm just going to have to move that light up and away. I might find some way to shade it or shelter it, or maybe even I can invest someday in getting an LED that's a little more focal, and I can hang it straight above it and have more of a beam shining down rather than light shining out. But whatever we're going to do in the future, that will be in the future. Today we're just going to trim these plants down. We're going to do a big water change, gravel vac, and then of course I'm just going to do some simple filter maintenance, which is going to involve putting a new pad in there and making sure everything's running smoothly and flowing properly. So I'm going to get on with that. For you it should be instantaneous, but we will be right back and we will show you what this tank looks like after I'm all done. Alright everybody, never miss an opportunity to drive home a point. So I'm going to take this opportunity to drive home a point about testing your water and staying on top of your nitrates. I did shoot a video earlier today where I talked about nitrates, and I talked about not being overly worried about them, but I also talked about taking them very seriously. Now, if you look at this two tests we have standing here in front of us, the one on the right is after, and the one on the left is before. Now, you can't tell the difference on video, at least not on the screen of my phone at the moment, but I can tell a slight difference. The one on the right is ever so slightly oranger than the one on the left, but that is not a significant enough drop in nitrates for me. I only did a 5-gallon water change, and you can see I'm still well within that reddish color that you get on the API test kit, and that is around 40 parts per million, so I'm still too high on the nitrates, and 5 gallons was not nearly enough. We're going to have a look in one moment at the water that we just tested from before, and you'll see why it is so nasty, and you'll actually be surprised that the nitrates are as low as they are when you see how nasty the water is that I vacked up out of the gravel. And then we're going to do another 5 gallons, and we're going to see what the end result looks like after that. Alright everybody, here we are back at the tank. Now, I know this isn't going to be much of a before and after video now that we're looking at some intermediary stuff. This is after the 5-gallon water change where we just looked at the test a moment ago, and that is the water and the old filter pad and some of the plants I pulled out of there. So that is what we just tested, and that was what the before vial came from. So that's some pretty funky, nasty looking stuff. And after a 5-gallon water change, we already look like that, and it's been maybe 20 minutes since I did the water change. We're still letting some of the dust settle from being stirred up and from the filter being disturbed and everything. You know how it is right after a water change. The tank always looks a little rough. So this is only about 20 minutes in, and it already looks pretty good. You can see a lot of the tannins have been removed. I obviously removed a lot of the vegetation, so that's letting a lot more light through. But the real point is it looks pretty. Yeah, the nitrates were still higher than I want to see them. They were still in that reddish area around 40 parts per million. I'd like to get them about half that. I'd like to get them down to about 20. So you need to test your water. You cannot just eyeball the water and look at it. You can't say, well, there's lots and lots of plants in there, because you saw how heavily planted this was a few minutes ago. And yet I still had nitrate levels that high. This is a heavily stocked tank. I know it doesn't look like it, but I have a lot of small fish in there, and then I have several hidden plecos in there, which are dirty fish. They're fairly messy. So we are going to do one more 5-gallon. We'll test again, and we'll see where we are from there. If it's not down enough, I'll go ahead and do some more. But we will do enough water changes until we reduce the level down to about 20 parts per million on the nitrate. So let's go one more step, and we'll see where we go from there. Alright everybody, so what do we have here? We have got the two red tests right there in the middle. Those are from before, and they've been sitting here for quite a while, and they've matured to the point where you can't really even tell the color difference between them. Unfortunately, the one to the right there that still looks somewhat orange has also been sitting for quite a while. That is the after test. Now, I'm not going to show you any of the progress we made on the tank because of the way I did it. There's nothing really to show you. I did wind up doing about a 50 to 60% water change, and that's what I finally came up with, was this orange vial here on the end. Again, it has gotten a little darker. It's been about half an hour since I completed the test. I have done a few other things in the meantime. One of those was I decided I would check my source water, since I did such a massive water change and I still had such high nitrates. So this yellow vial here, I'm happy to say, is my tap water. So that indicates to me that my water system is still removing the nitrates from the groundwater. So I then decided, just to make sure I still do have nitrates in my groundwater and that my system is indeed functioning properly, I took a final sample from my well directly before it goes through my system, and that is what we came up with. So that's been sitting here for about 8 minutes or so. It's been a few minutes since I heard the buzzer go off, so that is a little bit more than mature, but a few minutes doesn't really make that big of a difference. It really has to sit for a while before the color really starts to darken up. So I do still have at least 20 to 30 parts per million nitrates in my groundwater, and that's almost what I ended up with after the massive water change. And again, before the darkening, it was about that same color. So I do have about the same in my groundwater that I've ended up with in my tank. And one thing it did remind me to do was check my salt. I was out, so I filled my basin halfway up. That's all the salt I have at the moment. It needs about another 160 pounds. But I did put 120 pounds in there already, and the next time it runs a backwash cycle, it will go ahead and strip all of the nitrates out of my ion exchange resin, and it'll keep my water nitrate free. The cost will be not salt in my water, but it will be sodium ions in my water, and you can see right there where my sodium ions come from. So let's get one more look at what the tank looked like originally. We'll have a little reminder of where we started, and then we will finish up with what it looks like now and any final thoughts. Alright, and there we are with the after. You can already see my two frogs right there are quite comfortable and happy in here, so I'm really enjoying them. And other than that, you know, we already kind of looked at what we did with the plants. We got most of them out. We trimmed everything up top here. That's nice and cut back, so that will have time to grow back in and look beautiful. The water Sprite I thinned out. I actually did take the main body out, obviously, and I left some of the smaller root masses in there, the younger plants, and we're going to just start letting them grow again. You can already see where we're starting to get some growth popping up out of the water on this new stuff. So it won't take long before this plant is nice and well grown back in and looking big and bushy and beautiful again. So there you go, everybody. That was the before and after. Hope you enjoyed. If you're not already subscribed, please go ahead and do so. I do a lot of videos. You never know what you're really going to get with me. So if you're subscribed, you won't miss anything. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you real soon on the next one.